This is Art Television.
A very good evening and a warm welcome to the Biz RoundUp on another weekend. I am Pomuza Katagampala. We are television bringing you as usual another collection of latest happenings and developments in the business arena, easing your decision-making moments. And now let's have a look at the top stories for today. President issues directive to ensure an uninterrupted power supply. International Monetary Fund urges Sri Lanka to tighten monetary policy. Sri Lanka, while cooperating with the UNHRC, rejects work that is punitive and politicized. And now news in detail. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa instructed all responsible entities to move towards ensuring an uninterrupted power supply from March 5, states the President Media Division. President Rajapaksa issued this directive following a special meeting held at the Presidential Secretariat on Wednesday with regard to the power outages and restricted fuel supply.
The special meeting comes in the wake of outages caused by a lack of funds to secure sufficient fuel for thermal power generation. The statement did not detail out how fuel supplies would be secured to provide uninterrupted power from Saturday onwards, as long lines have recently been witnessed at filling stations due to the restricted fuel supply. The President's statement also stated that fuel supplies to filling stations across the country will be normalized today. Sri Lanka currently needs close to $500 million a month to source diesel and petrol and was forced to engage in power shedding last week, while authorities work to secure $31 million for a 3,700 million ton fuel shipment. The central bank, according to Energy Ministry sources, has ceased the release of funds to pay for fuel shipments. Nearly a third of the electricity supplied is generated by oil-fired power plants, and similar amount comes from coal and hydropower, according to the Ceylon Electricity Board. Namal Hewagay, general manager of the Lanka Coal Company, said there are sufficient coal supplies to ensure continuous supply of electricity from the CB-run coal-fired power plant. According to the general manager, Lanka Coal issued a spot tender for 1.8 million tons in September, after which it received 30 shipments from South Africa and 8 shipments from Russia. The nation procured another 480,000 tons of South African coal, which is expected to arrive in the coming days. General Manager Hewagay holds that this should be sufficient to last until September this year, and stated that it was the central bank which facilitated the purchase of coal supplies with a letter of credit.
The International Monetary Fund recently reported that Sri Lanka needs to tighten its monetary policy to contain rising inflation, put its high debt repayments on track, and reverse one of the worst financial crises the country has faced in years. The IMF Article 4 review stresses the urgency of implementing a credible strategy to restore macroeconomic stability and reduce debt.
Sri Lanka's reserves have plunged 70% since 2020, falling to $2.36 billion at the end of January. But the island has debt repayments of about $4 billion this year, including a $1 billion international sovereign bond maturing in July. The dollar scarcity has prompted some analysts and rating agencies to warn of a potential default. The foreign exchange shortage has also left the nation unable to afford essential import of fuel, medicine and food. The country only has fuel for a few days, prompting motorists to line up at pumps and the island's power regulator to approve 5-hour power cuts. The government has so far resisted calls to start talks with the IMF on a program that could reassure investors and eventually help it regain access to international capital markets to repay its debts after multiple downgrades over the last 2 years. The main opposition party, Samaga Jana Balawegaya, has called on the government to table the Article 4 review before Parliament and outline a sustainable economic management plan. The IMF executive director stressed an ambitious fiscal consolidation based on high-quality revenue measures. Noting Sri Lanka's low tax to GDP ratio, they saw scope for raising income tax and VAT rates and minimizing exemptions, complemented with revenue administration reform. Directors encourage improvements to expenditure rationalization, budget formulation and execution, and the fiscal rule. They encourage authorities to reform state-owned enterprises and adopt cost recovery energy pricing. The directors agreed that a tighter monetary policy stance is needed to contain rising inflationary pressures while phasing out the central bank's direct financing of budget deficits. They also recommended a gradual return to a market-determined and flexible exchange rate to facilitate external adjustment and rebuild international reserves. Directors called on the authorities to gradually unwind capital flow management measures as conditions permit. Noting financial stability risks from public debt overhang and sovereign bank nexus, they recommended close monitoring of underlying asset quality and identifying vulnerabilities through stress testing. Directors welcomed ongoing legislative reforms to strengthen the regulatory, supervisory, and resolution frameworks. Directors called for renewed efforts on growth-enhancing structural reforms. They stressed the importance of increasing female labor force participation and reducing youth unemployment. Further efforts are needed to diversify the economy, phase out import restrictions, and improve the business and investment climate in general. Directors also called for a prudent management of the Colombo Port City project and continued efforts to strengthen governance and fight corruption.
Sri Lanka has earned a record $834 million from export of coconuts and related products last year, with a strong 26% annual growth. Customs data showed that the nation earned $834 million last year from the export of coconut products such as kernel, fiber and shell, compared to $661 million in 2020.
The statement issued by Sri Lanka Customs said that there is a huge demand in the world for local coconut-based products. Quoting Plantation Minister Ramesh Pathrana, the statement said that kernel exports jumped 37% last year compared to 2020 and fiber products rose 9%. Customs also announced that shell products gained over 40%. Officials also noted that Plantations Minister Pathrana inaugurated a hybrid seed coconut production center at Tangol with an aim to produce 2 million high-yielding hybrid coconut seedlings by 2023. Sri Lanka produces 3 billion coconuts annually, but 2 billion nuts are consumed locally. An official from the Plantation Ministry said that coconut is one of the top agricultural crops after tea in Sri Lanka. Quoting Minister Pathrana, the officials also said that the ministry has plans to increase coconut production and export more coconuts, targeting an income of $2 billion. With a view to increase the production, the government is in the process of providing 2 coconut seedlings to every household in the country under the concept of Coconut Home Garden.
Facebook protects a higher level of protection against hacking available to human rights defenders, journalists and government officials is now available in Sri Lanka. Facebook Protect now allows Sri Lankan users to adopt a 2-factor authentication that involves the use of a third-party authentication app to protect a profile account.
Facebook in a statement said that as part of their ongoing improvements to security, they are expanding Facebook Protect. They also said that the program designed for people that are likely to be highly targeted by malicious hackers, including human rights defenders, journalists and government officials. The statement also added that those individuals are at the center of critical communities for public debate and they are enable democratic elections, hold governments and organizations accountable and defend human rights around the world. However, the social media platform said that the new feature is not necessary unless the user gets a notification to join the feature. Facebook Protect allows users to adopt a 2-factor authentication that involves the use of a third-party authentication app to protect a profile account. Facebook Protect will also monitor for potential hacking threats. Initially, this feature was being tested in 2018 and then expanded by Facebook during the 2020 US election. Facebook added that they will expand the program to more than 50 countries by the end of the year. This will include the United States, India and Portugal.
Stay tuned for more news after the short break.
Businesses in this day and age require the best communication solutions to be connected anywhere and anytime. Our technologically advanced long-distance radio devices operate even in the most challenging and harsh environments, designed for dust, water, and drop resistance. The push-to-talk function is designed for convenience, ensuring clear and uninterrupted communication between multiple devices. Dynacom Engineering, a subsidiary of IWS Holdings, is a licensed service provider of the best push-to-talk long-distance wireless communication systems, approved by the TRC and the Ministry of Defense.
Sponsored by
New SLT Mobitel Home 4G LTE users get date offers and win valuable tab computers through a raffle draw.
Welcome back to the program. Foreign Minister Professor G.L. Peiris, who heads the Sri Lankan delegation to the UNHRC, addressed its 49th session in Geneva on Monday during the high-level segment. However, the session commenced with a special focus on the escalating situation in Ukraine, whose representative called for support from member states to help protect their independence.
Russia's blatant violation of the UN Charter and fundamental principles of international law have been unequivocally condemned by the UN Secretary General and UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, who in unison expressed deep concern for devastating human rights ramifications of Russia's action. Mr. President, among other brutal characteristics, Russian aggression is accompanied by a massive flow of disinformation that aims to distort the truth and mislead the international community. Some of it we will hear today, as well in other rooms of the Palais des Nations and other institutions of International Geneva. We believe this is the responsibility of this Council to push back against conspicuous lies and procedural manipulations by the aggressor state and to strongly respond to its blatant violations of international law and our common principle. Mr. President, due to the single Russia's veto, the UN Security Council yesterday was not able to take action. The day before yesterday, but the Russian veto cannot stop the UN General Assembly and UN Human Rights Council to respond to this blatant violation of UN Charter and international humanitarian and human rights law. It is a duty of the UN Human Rights Council to demonstrate its credibility and relevance and to take appropriate action to put an end to gross and systematic violations of human rights stemming from the Russian aggression. We call upon its members to exercise their responsibility and support our request for an urgent debate. I thank you.
Foreign Minister Peiris began his UNHRC address focusing on the extensive measures taken by Sri Lanka to engage with the UNHRC as well as its own domestic measures. He highlighted virtues embedded in our constitution and those that are prevalent throughout our democratic and independent processes and institutions.
Mr. President, Sri Lanka is an active participant in the multilateral framework to realize the promotion and protection of human rights. Fundamental rights are embodied in our Constitution, progressively advanced through our democratically elected organs of government, and enforced through our independent judiciary. Despite multiple challenges we have faced from terrorism, we have restored peace, security, and the rule of law throughout our country. Our democratic traditions and independent institutions ensure free and fair elections at regular intervals through universal adult franchise. We will further advance the considerable progress we have made in post-conflict recovery and healing. For this, Mr. President, we have put in place domestic institutions for reconciliation, accountability, and social justice. Through this Council, we have completed 3 mutually beneficial universal periodic reviews, engaged in constructive dialogue with the treaty bodies, welcomed special procedures mandate holders, and held frank and open discussions with domestic and international interlocutors.
The Foreign Minister went on to state that Sri Lanka has engaged actively and constructively in aspects of the Council's work that has been productive and beneficial. While stating that they have helped Sri Lankans live better lives, he rejected those aspects that could undo social cohesion.
Sri Lanka has participated actively and constructively in those aspects of the Council's work that have been productive and beneficial, and which have helped to ensure that our people live safer, longer, and more dignified lives. We reject, however, those that are punitive, politicized, divisive, unhelpful, and initiated due to extraneous reasons. Mr. President, as elsewhere in the world, we endeavor to strike a just balance between human rights and national security when dealing with terrorism. Sri Lanka is convinced that counter-terrorism legislation must secure and protect the rights of persons subject to investigation, detention and trial, and must not restrict democratic freedoms such as the freedom of expression. We take particular objection to the use of voluntary funding, which has the necessary consequence of undermining objectivity and detachment. Against this background, Sri Lanka once again reiterates its view that the evidence-gathering mechanism established under Operative Para 6 of Resolution 46/1 is unhelpful to the people of Sri Lanka, will polarize Sri Lankan society, and adversely affect economic development, peace and harmony in my country at a challenging time. It is an unproductive drain on member state resources at a time of severe financial shortfalls across the entire multilateral system, including the High Commissioner's office.
Stay tuned for more news after the short break.
Skoda. Simply clever.
State of Business, sponsored by
New SLT Mobitel Home 4G LTE users. Get date offers and win valuable tab computers through a raffle draw.
IWS Aviation.
Welcome back after the break. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa says that a devastating situation that could have emerged in the country was brought under control by implementing the COVID-19 vaccine program. President Rajapaksa made these observations while virtually addressing the recent debate on galvanizing momentum for universal vaccination, a high-level thematic debate convened in New York by the President of the UN General Assembly. The World Health Organization confirmed that as of 25th February, there were more than 428.5 million cases of COVID-19 globally and 5.9 million deaths. President of the UN General Assembly, Abdullah Shahid, and the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, expressing their views at the beginning of the debate, pointed out the importance of vaccination and how different states have acted on it. During the first round of the debate, existing challenges in vaccine production and distribution, optimizing quality, improving absorption capacity and delivery states in low-coverage countries, and ensuring supply predictability were highlighted and reviewed. The second round focused on identifying innovations and solutions needed to overcome current challenges and work towards universal vaccination.
Sri Lanka appreciates the initiative of His Excellency Abdullah Shahid, President of the United Nations General Assembly, in convening this debate. The continuing spread of COVID-19 remains a matter of serious concern for all countries. The emergence of new variants of concern remains a dangerous possibility, while availability of vaccines remains uneven globally.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa appreciated the generosity of the nations that donated vaccines directly or via the COVAX program, thereby augmenting the majority of vaccines that Sri Lanka brought directly from manufacturers. He also communicated to the world the progress of Sri Lanka's vaccination program up to now.
Sri Lanka's vaccination program began in January 2021, shortly after vaccines first became available. It was rooted in the principles of preventing mortality, morbidity, and transmission of COVID-19 and maintaining social and economic functions while safeguarding public health goals. We adopted a risk-based approach with healthcare workers, those with comorbidities, and the elderly being prioritized for vaccination. By January 2022, every citizen above the age of 12 has been offered the COVID-19 vaccine, and uptake has been exemplary throughout the country. As of 15th February this year, 95% of the eligible population has received one dose of the vaccine, while 85% have been double vaccinated. 44% of those fully vaccinated have also been provided a booster dose. Despite the pandemic's high human cost, these measures have helped Sri Lanka contain its ravages to a large degree.
Ideal Finance Limited, a subsidiary of Mahindra and Mahindra Financial Services Limited, recently announced its rebranding as Mahindra Ideal Finance Limited. It is upon this bedrock that the partners Mahindra and Ideal Group will further the vision of making Mahindra Ideal Finance a leading licensed finance company in Sri Lanka.
Ideal Finance, a non-banking financial institution registered with the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, commenced operations in March 2012 with a clear focus on rural and semi-urban sectors. Mahindra Group is a multinational with a leadership position in farm equipment, utility vehicles, information technology and financial services in India, while also being the world's largest tractor company by volume. Mahindra and Mahindra Financial Services Limited, part of the Mahindra Group, is a leading non-banking finance company in India and is also focused on the rural and semi-urban sectors. Mahindra Finance, with over 7.3 million customers across India, has an AUM of over $11 billion. The company, a leading vehicle and tractor financier, provides loans to SMEs and offers fixed deposits. Sri Lanka, with its cultural and geographical similarity to India and its vibrant financial services market, has emerged as a promising opportunity for Mahindra Finance. As an automotive market, Sri Lanka holds strategic importance for the Mahindra Group, where it has also set up an assembly line operation. Mahindra Finance owns 58.2% stake of its subsidiary in Sri Lanka, Mahindra Ideal Finance, and aims to replicate its successful and socially inclusive business model in Sri Lanka by expanding the scope of business. The investment by Mahindra Finance in Ideal Finance has already resulted in strong recognition for the company, with a re-rating from Fitch Ratings to AA, affording its status of Outlook Stable. It is part of the company's international strategy of expanding into India like Asian markets, especially those that are of strategic importance for the Mahindra Group in terms of its automotive and farm equipment products. Mahindra Ideal Finance, with its rebranding, will further enhancing its customer value proposition by offering a wider suite of products which will include gold loans, leases for personal vehicles, commercial trucks, 2- and 3-wheelers, consumer finance loans and personal loans.
Well, that's all we have here today. See you tomorrow with State of Business at 7:45 p.m. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.